It was meant to be a routine landing into Washington's Ronald Reagan National Airport, but the US is now coming to terms with the biggest aviation disaster in decades. American Airlines Flight 5342 was making its final approach into the US capital from Wichita in Kansas when it collided with an Army Black Hawk helicopter over the city's Potomac River. 64 people were on board the jet, while 3 people were travelling inside the chopper. None of them survived, meaning a total death toll of 67. Let's take a live look at the Potomac River now, where recovery operations continue in waters that are at -1 degree. It's understood at least 30 bodies have been recovered so far. And less than 24 hours after the incident, US President Donald Trump has laid the blame on diversity, equity and inclusion picks, as well as the Democrats and previous policies. Let's go to the Potomac River now, where we find our Washington correspondent Annalise Nielsen. Annalise, good afternoon where you are. Do we know any more about what's caused this crash?
Look, this is very much turned to a recovery mission, and that's exactly what all these investigators want to know as they work to recover the bodies. They're also working to ascertain that key information that will give us the answers to exactly what happened as this collision happened mid-air, just so close to the heart of the US Capitol. What we do know is that divers have had some access to the cabin of the plane underneath the water. CBS is reporting that they have been able to obtain something that's believed to be the black box, one of 2, and we will get further information when there's a briefing in the next hour from the National Transport Safety Bureau. One of the other things we're waiting to hear about is how many people of different nationalities were on this plane. We do understand that a number of the people who were on this flight were returning from competing in the national championships for figure skating, and it's believed a number of Russians were on board. While this is all playing out, there was a briefing at the White House in the White House press office, and we'll get to that in a moment. But we have heard from both the Defense Secretary, who was responsible in the ultimate level for the Black Hawk that was involved in this collision, and of course the American Airlines CEO, who spoke earlier today. Both of these officials have said that the pilots on each aircraft were very experienced pilots. Here's the American Airlines CEO.
These were experienced pilots. I know that the captain had 6 years with PSA, or almost 6 years with PSA, and the first officer almost 2 years. Again, standard approach, and that's about all I can say.
Pete, as you mentioned earlier in Donald Trump's briefing, he very quickly took aim at diversity, equity and inclusion programs as being part of what the cause of this crash was. Now, it is at this moment still unclear what actually caused this crash. While there has been a history of DEI programs within administrations like the FAA, which oversees some of the regulations in the airline industry, some of the employment practices, we still don't know much publicly about who actually was involved in this incident and exactly what the culpability might be for any of the individuals involved. And so Donald Trump's already facing criticism for bringing this topic to the lectern at this point, as they're still bringing bodies out of the Potomac River. He made no apologies for talking about DEI as being something he thinks has contributed to this disaster.
When I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level.
Donald Trump was joined by his new Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, who was sworn in just 2 days ago before this incident has unfolded. It's one of the reasons he was on the ground and ready to go in Washington, D.C. after his confirmation hearings, that this all happened so close to that process. He joined President Trump in suggesting that they were going to be looking into DEI as being a potential issue here, that there hasn't been enough stringent vetting of people in these fields. But what we've also learned here is about that there was an issue with potentially the communications from the flight control. There's been some audio leaked to CNN, which seems to suggest there may have been confusion in the Black Hawk helicopter when they were told that they could fly behind this plane, that they might have been actually making their flight path based on a different plane that was coming in to the same airport shortly after. The DCA airport has been controversial for some time. The fact it is so close to the heart of the US power and government, it's so close to the US. There were moves to shut it down after 9/11, but local, especially members of Congress, wanted a quick, easy way to get in and out of the city before going back to their home districts, and so it's stayed for that time. Flights have again started to come through today, with authorities saying it is absolutely safe to fly in and out, but there will be questions about how this can continue. This was something Sean Duffy addressed in the hearing today, and we also heard from Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth.
When we deal with safety, we can only accept the best and the brightest in positions of safety that impact the lives of our loved ones, our family members. And I think you make a really important point on that, Mr. President. That is the motto of your presidency.
Never should happen. And certainly the three service members, the three soldiers, a young captain, staff sergeant, and CW2, Chief Warrant Officer, on a routine annual retraining of night flights on a standard corridor for a continuity of government mission. The military does dangerous things. It does routine things on the regular basis. Tragically, last night, a mistake was made.
Pete, this is the worst loss of life for an air incident in the US since 2001. It's something that they said could not happen. This is such a busy air thoroughfare for Washington, D.C. And it's often joked about that there are so many helicopters going through Washington, D.C. that the helicopter's considered the state bird, if there were to be a state for Washington, D.C. This has really shaken so many people around the area, and there will be so many questions about not only what happened here, but whether this airport should continue to operate.
Yeah, okay, Annalise, we'll talk to you again soon.